Peace, 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 family. Peace to my nigglets. Peace to my fairies, to my sisters, my brothers. How y'all doing tonight? I'm really, really excited about tonight's conversation. But before we get into that, I want to announce and remind you all that are interested in the I'm a Birth course that we start next week. And you can sign up. I'm going to put the link in the comment section. You can sign up there. I believe classes are still discounted, so take advantage of that. I am very excited to see you all in class and to have a beautiful build on the birth process. So last week we got into part one, the forgetting, and we discussed the many ways in which systematic structures, societal habits, and our own bad decisions have led us into this dysfunction, creating a separation and detachment from our power in our womb, our voice, our inner voice that speaks through our womb. And that dysfunction has led to chaotic creations. We broke down in the Patreon space an expansion of that topic, and we went into how to release energy through the body, because I am a solution oriented person and I enjoy both talking about the truth and also creating resolutions, because all things can be shifted and transformed into functionality. So we discussed how to remove energy from the body, and this week I'll be uploading in the Patreon space the video as I flow through movements and Kundalini breathwork exercises that assist in relieving tension from areas in the body like the shoulders, the back, the jaw, and the womb space and the hips. So if you are interested in that, I'll leave the link in the chat for you guys to join the Patreon space for my sisters that are wanting to go deeper into some of these conversations that we are having tonight. So the womb speaks. My first question that I invite you to ask yourself, ponder on, meditate, is what type of creations have you given birth to? And this is not just about women who have children, who are mothers. It's in regards to women at every level in their life, because we are always creating, and we do not just create children. And our circumstances, reality, and experiences often mirror those creations that maybe we are not aware of how they come to be. So asking yourself that question of what type of creations have you given birth to can be expressed through your relationships, whether they be platonic, family, or your romantic relationships. This can be expressed through your actual creations. If you have a business, or if you work for someone, what field of work are you in? What service do you provide? This goes for how you show up in your environments and what that looks like. Of course, we include our children as well. They are the biggest and most adamant physical representations of what our womb creates. And the reason I invite you to ask yourself that question is because this begins to shift the mind from victim mode into being the God of your reality and taking responsibility and accountability as the creator, as the cause of these effects that we experience. That question has often allowed me to shift the way in which I come up or present myself in spaces, Um, it challenges you to step out of your comfort zone and to really ask yourself if the things that you are doing work and give you the effect or the results that you desire. Understanding that the womb speaks is also understanding, first and foremost, that the womb is mirroring the mind. And so the mind is impacted by what you surround yourself with, what you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're around, who you share space with, who you share energy with. The mind is impacted by your beliefs. And you'll often see a lot of people talking about the very real truth that the belief does not equate to the truth. Beliefs can often put our mind in a state of delusion and cause us to become confused and impulsive and erratic in our expression. So being aware of that is very important. The mind is also impacted by your emotions as a woman. We operate differently from men, and our emotions definitely can impact our thought cycle. It can impact how we perceive things that are happening. It can impact how our body feels. Oftentimes, emotion is becomes a thought, becomes a cycle of thoughts, and that can express itself physically in the imbalances that we see in our body, in our womb space. And so becoming aware of all the different things that impact your mind invites you to and challenges you to be disciplined about what you surround yourself with, especially as a woman with a mind and a womb. Our womb is equally as sensitive and equally as impacted, if not more, by the things that we interact with on a daily basis. And so we don't just have the mind that is this infinite space of creation. We also have the womb that mirrors and mimics that in expression and functionality. And so the things that you surround yourself with are the muses and inspiration that you create from, not to mention your own foundational aspects of self. And so realizing that the womb does mirror the mind, it is important to pause, to create space for restoration, for cleansing, for those of us that have experienced life and are just now learning and implementing a lot of the different awarenesses that we've been gifted to have. That includes resetting the different patterns that you have created, whether that be in survival mode or due to lack of awareness and knowledge of how to operate. When you step into a certain awareness, you have to shift, or you're inviting not only more chaos, but also destruction and possible extinction of your lineage. So when we take space to get more accountable, you find that your mind and womb shifts from allowing these very impressionable dysfunctional patterns and habits to take up space. You begin to separate yourself from those things that you know are dysfunctional, toxic, and out of your functionality as a woman. And that brings peace. And that brings stillness. And that brings awareness of your purpose. It shifts you into a level of divinity that does not require validation and also has this fire to be of service. And being of service is one of the most beautiful gifts that we can give in this lifetime, because what you are here to gift the world is most evolved in its expression when it is a service. And so my next question that I would ask for tonight would be, what do you see in your creation? And is your creation one of chaos, or is it one of flow and rhythm? And I'm gonna break both of those down. Chaos is destruction, it is confusion, it is the surface level, attention grabbing, self serving things. And when I say self serving, I mean the things that we do not to make the world a better place, but to serve a temporary desire. And when it comes to flow and being in resonance, your creation looks like it is of purpose. It has clear intention. It has a direction and a vision it follows. And it inspires others around you to operate in that same nature. And I think that's one of the most beautiful and magical and exciting things about being a woman, is that when we are tapped into that resonance, you can see everything around you shift, and it's inspired by your existence. If you're a mom, I can imagine that you have experienced at some point in time shifting a habit or a pattern, or just a certain action that maybe you were doing, and then you notice that shift that you did for yourself to be a better mom, or just a better flow, has shifted your entire environment. I'll give you an example. My favorite one so far has been reestablishing a routine for my children, because as free flowing and fairy essence I am, having a structure and routine actually allows me to have a calm nervous system. And it assists with creating a space of known in my reality that allows me to always visit whenever I need space to pause. So routine for me is a space of safety. It is my resonance, my environment that I prefer. And shifting into this space has allowed my children's space to also ground into stability, which children do need. They need consistency, and that routine has provided us not only with more space to have presence together that is for the intention of building and growing and learning, we also have had the very necessary healthy space to separate and to be in our own worlds. And so I ask you, what do you see most in your creation? Do you see chaos, or do you see flow and your rhythm being expressed? And I'm very sensitive not to say things like, you won't see mistakes, because I feel like that's a very unrealistic expectation, to be honest. Everything that we are doing to rehabilitate our lineage and to build empires and to have functional nuclear families is something that we're remembering and something that we are in every moment shifting and altering to be more in a flow state with what resonates with us and what we are seeking to build with our families. And so mistakes come with that. I feel like mistakes are the best way to grow. And it's not so much about beating yourself up about making a mistake more than it is about being open and excited to shift into functionality and into learning from that mistake so that those mistakes are not repeated and so that you see the growth in finding the path for your flow. So with this topic of the womb speaks, I'm really excited about it because I get to talk about patterns that we can see in our matriarchal lineage. And I'm very studious when it comes to patterns. So if I have any cosmology or astrology people that enjoy those type of studies, it's going to relate to that as well. Something that you can look back at and be able to see your actual patterns in your matriarchal lineage and learn a couple of different things. One, learning how to actually create your purpose in a functional way. Our matriarchal lineage shows us a lot about what the women in our family have come to do or have sought or are asking from us. Two, you'll be able to see what your lineage of matriarchs have come forward, which can open up space for you to tap into listening to your womb, because we all have patterns and different expressions that have been passed down. And when you become aware of these things, you can decide functionally to either keep a habit or a pattern that you see in your lineage that is functional and helpful, or to shift it for the betterment of your lineage and for the creations that you bring forth in the future. So you'll also be able to see some health cycles that will assist you with your own rehabilitation of your womb and being more in sync with what she is saying, because she is speaking. And so some of the patterns that I have noticed that you can trace in your matriarchal lineage are imbalances or womb dysfunction. We're going to start there. And so some women have a line of PCOS, of fibroids, of cysts. Some women have a lineage of children who have come with health risks or health concerns. Some women have a lineage of very fertile women in the family, women that have little to no complications with birth. You'll have women that may have breast cancer, different ovarian cysts, ovarian cancer, different things, right? And when we understand that these dysfunctions of the womb are not just biological mishap or something that is shifted with just following the proper food science, it is also breaking down traumas that have been repeated in a cycle. It is also about recognizing if you have things like sexual abuse in your family, or trauma with domestic violence, or trauma with women who were sexually out there and very promiscuous, or women who preferred not to be married or not to build a nuclear family, or women that have chosen to build their wealth, material wealth, over building their wealth and their lineage. All these different patterns that you can see will tell you why some of these dysfunctions like fibroids or cysts will repeat in your family cycle. So I'll give you an example. Women in my family have had breast cancer. Women in my family have had fibroids, a lot of fibroids actually, in my family. And then I also have women, well, all the women in my family are very fertile. Everyone has had a child, for the most part. Not everyone, but most. And what that tells me are two things. One, that there is a big shift that I get to do, that my daughter gets to participate in when it comes to uplifting and reviving our matriarch. That does come with understanding that those specific to dysfunctions, the fibroids and the breast cancer, can often come from a buildup of testosterone, as well as aggression, like toxic masculinity in women. And a lot of the women in my family are extremely successful businesswomen. And I've seen a shift within the last, I want to say, 7 years, where more women in my family have, well, specifically my mom, which I'm very happy for her, but women in my family are married, right? And that's such an important shift to look at, because in that shift, I've also seen the softening of the women in my family. And I've also seen the shift of independent women to interdependent and collaborative women who are not against being helpmates. And I'm grateful to do this study with my family, because it assists me with making sure that I don't repeat certain cycles and certain decisions that were made that have hardened our womb and created a lot of these imbalances. A lot of the shifts that you can identify in womb imbalance comes from us stepping out of our nature, and that can express itself in so many different ways. One can be, instead of being vulnerable and admitting that you're exhausted or tired, persevering and becoming resilient in a cold-hearted and callous type of way. And so oftentimes we as women, that's not a very unfamiliar pattern. We have learned how to survive in society, in a world where women are generally not safe unless they are protected and provided for by a nuclear family and a support and a tribe and a jurisdiction. And so recognizing the why of how this pattern has developed for us as women, and then recognizing what needs to shift in order for us to stop repeating the same cycles, is a big part of starting to understand fully how the womb communicates. Because even in her dysfunction, she is saying something, and she is requesting you to give attention to a certain area or habitual pattern that you may see in your matriarchal lineage. I'm grateful to say that I've never had to experience fibroids or breast cancer. But I also know that my mom was very intentional, whether she was conscious of it or not, of what she created. Um, and that brings me into the cosmological blueprint. Um, and this is a study that I'm still experimenting with, but I have seen patterns every time I ask someone about this. So, cosmology is a science that we um, are taught in Aina and through the Aboriginal Medical Association. And cosmology is the oldest science. It is the origin from which astrology, numerology, and a lot of other spiritual sciences originated from. And so your cosmological blueprint is going to tell you a lot about the patterns in your family. And so one day I decided to look at my mom and like what she gave birth to, right? As far as the our cosmological energy signatures. So my mom is an 8 of diamonds, um, and she gave birth to a 7 of hearts, then an 8 of hearts, which is me, then a 6 of hearts, and then a 10 of diamonds, right? So I thought that was very unique because I have become aware that we as women create either from our need or from vision. And I feel as though very few people have actually created from vision functionally because we're just now actually embodying the sciences that Dr. Amarushi Ali teaches us in class about preconception planning and truly creating from mind first the children that you desire to have. And so the pattern that I have seen most is the expression of creation from need. And both can look similar in expression, but they function completely differently. When you are creating from a space of need, you're seeking to fill a void. You are seeking to transform or alchemize something that you are in need of, and that can look like many different things. For my mom, for example, her having 3 hearts and 1 diamond, I can say that she was seeking to create a safe environment. So the men that she chose, her intention was to create grounding, safety, and security for herself in building a family. And also emotional and physical, just love, right? Because when you think about a heart, cosmologically, these are going to be very emotional, passionate beings. They're very childlike. And so they have like an innocence to them while also being very nurturing and playful and loving and affectionate. And so my mom is not the most affectionate, but then she gave birth to all these super affectionate children. We used to literally try and sleep in her bed all the time. So that's very interesting to be aware of. And when I realized that there was a pattern there, I then, of course, looked at my own children, and I gave birth to 2 diamonds. I gave birth to a 2 of diamonds and a 4 of diamonds. Not in that order. 4 diamonds first, then 2 of diamonds. And diamond is material wealth, stability, economic building, economic wealth. It is the card of foundational development and creating space to build solid foundations that give a certain stability, right? And that's actually very accurate for what I would consider the need I was feeling when I was creating. And that was definitely more of a subconscious one. I feel like for most of us, it probably is subconscious, that creation from that space. But me looking at now, my Saturn card in cosmology is actually an 8 of diamonds. And so my lesson in this lifetime is to build a solid foundation of wealth and being a person that is responsible with economic wealth and structures and foundations and being responsible with my resources. And if anyone knows me, that is the challenge that I am flowing through now, where I am a giver. So I don't normally think about uh, the aftermath of giving, because I'm a person that believes that the biggest gift is connection and collaboration and being of service. And so I get to balance that lovey-dovey energy and be more disciplined with my resources so that I can build for not only myself, but my family and my children. So becoming aware of that has been very fun to flow through. If you do know your cosmological, your birth card, and if you know, like, if you have siblings and you know their birth cards, feel free to drop them in, or just notice the pattern for yourself. But it's very fun to look at. Even when I look at my mom and my dad and myself, my mom is my Saturn card, and I am my dad's Saturn card. So lots of patterns, a lot of 8s in my family too, my matriarchal lineage, a lot of 8s. The woman that taught me everything I know about cooking, cleaning, presenting myself properly, and being a respectable woman. She's an 8 of clubs, my great aunt, Auntie Lori. So I look at, I'm an 8 of hearts, my mom's an 8 of diamonds. My great aunt is an 8 of clubs. We have other 8s in our family. My daughter is a double 8. I recognize that the women in my family are very powerful. Grateful that my great aunt was a beautiful example to me of what it is to be a woman in her divinity. This woman is married and the most interdependent, loving, stern woman that I've ever encountered, and one of the most magical. She exudes true love, and she exudes a woman who operates in all of her essence. So a lot of times we can see, when we talk about what is it to be in your divinity, we'll see maybe a flux of people that believe that only exists in the titles that women step into in their service, whether that be a wife, a mother, an elder, grandmother. And womanhood and the divinity of woman is so much more than that, while also incorporating that, because it's a very big part. Service being the greatest thing that we can give to the world. And so my aunt showed me the balance of existing in her own world while also playing her role in a very graceful and powerful way for all the people that she is of service to. And so looking at the eights in my family and that pattern let me know not only that the women in my family are very powerful, but that we're here to uncover, remember those things that we have forgotten due to a lack of tradition, lack of culture, lack of the proper guides. So looking at that in my family has given me a huge inspiration and has deeply impacted how I show up and what I'm passionate about, and recognizing that some of my most sacred and magical times have been when I'm being of service to women, and when I am in that birth space, in that tether and between life and death, and that initiation of motherhood. That is a beautiful, beautiful happening to be a part of. And my great great was it my great great yeah my great great grandmother is was a root doctor in Harlem and serviced her community in a very powerful way, giving sanctuary to the people in the community, having a awareness of how to heal through food science, having an awareness of how to usher in new life. And so being gifted that awareness, which I didn't actually find this out until I think about I think it was 10 years ago. No. It's either 10 or 8 years ago I found this out, that my great grandmother was doing this in Harlem. And it ignited something in me. It gave me that yes, that we often look for outside of ourselves and from people who don't know you well enough to even speak on what your purpose could be. And so doing that check in your matriarchal lineage of the patterns that come up for you and your family can be very powerful, empowering, and it can give us a feeling of inner knowing, like that womb communication, that you're in the right flow and that you're doing exactly what you are in purpose to do in this lifetime. So astrologically, you could also do the same thing, whether it be you looking at the different signs and the different polarities that come up in your family. In my family, I have a lot of fourth polarity, seventh polarity, and eighth polarity in my lineage, in my matriarchal lineage. Both my great grandmother and my aunt are fourth polarity, which is Cancer. And they're actually one day away from each other. That's another pattern, actually. The women in my family give birth to their heir, literally. Like my great grandmother and my great aunt are a day apart, 7 of clubs and 8 of clubs. My mom and I are 2 days apart. So you have an 8 of hearts and an 8 of diamonds. And my daughter and I are 8 days apart. Is it 8, 7, 2? Yep, we're 8 days apart. So there goes that 8 again. But I just like to go back and look at those different patterns in my family because it allows me to have a direction to go in. It assists me with having that inner dialogue with myself to say, am I going in the right direction? One thing that I did know and that I've known since a child is that I had this longing to build and have a functional family and to get married and to have children. And I know that that came up in my spirit because it was imparted on me by the matriarchal lineage that I come from. The women in my family asking for us as women to step fully into our divinity and rebuilding the family unit, which we know for just less than 3 to 4 generations has been obliterated. And so my passion to rebuild that, starting with self and my own rehabilitation, has expressed itself deeply in the type of daughter that I created. And that when I did decide to have a daughter, without having necessarily the awareness that we get to learn in Aboriginal Medical Association, I distinctly remember consenting to her creation. And it shows up in her expression and how aware that she is. So going back and doing this deep dive of the patterns that show up in your lineage assists you in deciding also if you want to repeat a cycle, if you want to transform and elevate it. And I know that I get to shift and evolve a lot of the patterns that show up in my matriarchal lineage. And I also have beautiful examples of things to keep and of things to reclaim and teach and to pass on to my daughter. And creating this habitual practice of reteaching and passing on stories and awarenesses to our children, especially the women that we create, is how we begin to open up the line of communication for the womb. Recognizing that our wombs are interconnected and that just like we can sync cycles, it is because our wombs are already synced. That when we really begin to study and experiment in that space, you step into your divinity as a creator and you evolve from just the awareness that we get to create children, because we also get to create coherence and we get to create traditional womanhood again. And we get to, one of my favorite new definitions of remembrance or to remember is that remembrance transcends timestamps. It is about assessing the past, present, and future. And Dr. Shi Amaru said that, and it's an amazing way to look at remembrance, because it's not so much about repeating everything that we find in our history, but it is about taking into account what worked and shifting and modernizing and evolving those practices to make them our own and to help us to remember and reestablish creation that is godly, and creation that is godly not just from the children that we create, but how we show up as women in our businesses and our relationships and the world. And shifting the power that is often spoken of just sexually into something that is so much more profound and stable, and that being our essence and how we illuminate the world just simply by being. Because little do we know, a lot of what is happening in the world is due to our unawareness of our own patterns and the things that we have accepted and allowed to be expressed. There's a huge reason why the woman, when she is replicated in a dysfunctional way. And so if we begin to become aware of how we are speaking and expressing in the world, then that reflection from our womb is exuded in creations that we see in the world. We begin to see less disrespect of women and more reverence because we are revering ourselves. And this is not about goddess worship or simping. It is less about outside validation and more about validation through your creation. So I believe I have 9 more minutes. I honestly might tap out of here early. Yes, I will. But I invite you to meet me in the Patreon space if you enjoyed this topic. We can discuss it more. We will be having womb circles starting again in May. I'm gonna say in May. In May. Some other things that you can look forward to is our She Womb Bliss, a beautiful product that I have created for women that are seeking to stay in their BMI range and maintain a proper healthy weight, proper fats and adipose tissue being developed. That product will be available very soon. And I look forward to seeing you all in the birth course space as well. I have the link for the Patreon in there. And yes, thank you for tuning in. Peace.